Hello and welcome to today's Ramblings of a 42-Year-Old Man. This is Chris Smith, and today I'm going to ramble a little bit about the most recently released episode of HBO's The Last of Us TV series. So episode 3 of The Last of Us was released last Sunday. It is episodes 1 and 2 initially were combined into the episode 1 that we got, and then we had episode 2 the week after, and then episode 3 was just released again, like I said, last Sunday. This is another kind of supersized episode. It wasn't too put together like they did the first episode. This one was meant to be a little bit longer, and you can see why some of the structure to it leads to that. So just to recap a little bit, for those who didn't see my previous Last of Us rambling, this is based on the 2013 video game, The Last of Us by Naughty Dog, a company known for games like the Uncharted series, Crash Bandicoot, Jax and Dexter, things like that. Uncharted is probably their biggest one. Then The Last of Us, which now has 2 games, is definitely, I think, their top-selling series. The original Last of Us, one of the best-selling games of all time, multiple Game of the Year awards, and then in 2020 they did release a sequel, which then leads to the TV show, which they actually just announced this last week that there would be a second season of this show too, kind of focusing on that second game. So they're going to continue this forward and tell both stories of the 2 games of Last of Us. So again, starring Pedro Pascal as Joel, Pedro Pascal from Game of Thrones and The Mandalorian fame. Bella Ramsey plays the character of Ellie. She was also on Game of Thrones, Lady Mormont, and she also had a quick part in His Dark Materials, also on HBO. In this episode, and I'm going to talk about these 2 because this episode really is a focus, not just so much on Joel and Ellie. There are some parts with the 2 of them, but 2 new characters pop in, and the main part of this episode is about those 2 characters. So Nick Offerman plays the character of Bill. Nick Offerman is very famous from his character of Ron Swanson on Parks and Rec. And then Murray Bartlett plays Frank, and he most recently was on the first season of White Lotus, playing the hotel manager of that series, another HBO series. So the plot kind of this episode, so real quick, the base of the series, Joel and Ellie are traveling together to try to get her to this Firefly group, which is a resistance group which was resisting against Fedra, who is the kind of the government federal response to the pandemic that has taken over the world. Very totalitarian, authoritative, and the Fireflies are a resistance group. They have brought in Joel to get Ellie to another part of the resistance group that when they do get there, and I believe it was episode 2, there's nobody there. The people who are there have all been killed by the infected. So at this point, Joel and Ellie are continuing to travel to try to figure out where their next place is. And they're heading over to a friend, sort of friend of Joel's, Bill and Frank's. They have a compound where they're hoping to be able to get a truck and be able to, Joel specifically wants to go find his brother in Wyoming and figure out what he's going to do with Ellie at this point. So as your background of the episode starts with kind of the fallout from the second episode, which was Joel's partner, Tess, ends up becoming infected and sacrifices herself by blowing up a bunch of infected to let Joel and Ellie escape. And so they're kind of going through some of the emotions of that. Obviously, Joel and Tess have been together for a long time, and Ellie's coming in, and she, even though she says, "I'm not sorry, it's not my fault, you guys chose to do this, blah, blah," you can tell there's a little bit of blame that she has for herself in the fact that Tess did not make it. So then after a little bit with Joel and Ellie, we transition to the meat of this story, which is between Bill, who is a survivalist kind of guy. We see him from the first day 1 of the pandemic. He's got his survivalist bunker, and so it keeps him from getting, kind of rounded up with the other people from the town that he's in by the government, because he's down in his survivalist bunker. And so he sets up his whole compound. He puts fences around it, booby traps, and things like that. And then one day, 4 years later, somebody falls into one of his traps. So he goes over to it thinking that it's one of the infected, but it is not infected. It's just a person who's fallen in, and that is Frank, the one played by Murray Bartlett. So he, after a little tense beginning, he invites Frank into his compound just to kind of feed him before sending him on his way again. And as they're going, they uncover some things about each other, and it ends up that Frank's Frank ends up staying with Bill. And so it starts a really, really moving story with these two men, and yes, it is a romantic story between these two guys. So, take your thoughts and your feelings about that into account if you're going to watch the show. It is really, I will admit, it is a beautiful story, no matter who it is that is pertaining to. So, I would hope that any rough thoughts you might have in those areas could be soothed, but just the story itself is really, really beautiful. So, over pretty much somewhere between 15 to 20 year period, it just kind of shows the lives of these two guys and how they're able to survive with this compound that Bill's built. Frank is definitely more of the nurturer. He wants to clean up the area where they're living, make it still pretty, even though they're the only ones in it. There's nobody to show it to. But then he also wants to make friends. And so he actually pulls Joel and Tess to kind of help with trading goods, bringing things in that they don't have at the compound, and they can trade things back to them that they are able to provide, and kind of open up their boundaries just a little bit. So again, we continue throughout the years. A few years later, you see them talking to Joel and Tess. A few years after that, you see some raiders try to storm the compound, and you see Bill's side of the relationship. He's the protector. He's got all his guns and everything, and he's able to fight back against the raiders and keep them from coming in. So you see both sides of these guys' relationship, and again, they do a very good job of showing it as you go along. And then kind of get to the end of their portion, and they're older now. It's been almost 20 years since the beginning of the outbreak. Actually, I think exactly 20 years from the outbreak, but about 16 years since they came together. And Frank has gotten old. He's got some sort of wasting disease, probably MS or something like that. He's not able to get around so much. And so he kind of tells Billy, he's like, I'm dying. This is going to be my final day. Let's make it a good one. So that, they have this really great montage of how their last day together goes. And then at the end, they go off and they end up, passing away together. I was tearing up during some of the scenes that they had together. I'm not doing justice in the description of it because I'm not great at that, but it is a very, very well done, very moving, very tear-inducing episode. So then at the end of the episode, Joel and Ellie get to Bill's, and they come in and they find a note that Bill left saying everything that happened, and that Joel is welcome to any of his gear, any of his supplies, whatever he needs to continue on his way. So they find the truck, they get all gassed up, they're going to go to Wyoming to help to find Joel's brother. Joel tells Ellie, my brother used to be a Firefly, so if I can bring you over to him, he might be able to get you in touch with these people. And so it's kind of the start of where in the game, you really start to see Joel and Ellie's relationship develop. You're going to start to see that now, I think, more in this show. Before now, they've been a little standoffish, even combative with each other, but at this point on, it's going to be a little more of their relationship kind of coming together, and Joel kind of realizing that he is now similar to how Bill was for Frank. He's now got to be this protector for Ellie, and he's feeling the loss from Tess, like he failed to protect Tess. So you can tell there's some of that kind of mental things going on. And Pedro Pascal does a great job of conveying a lot of that just with his eyes. There's not a whole lot of, he doesn't break down. He's not super emotional, but you can see it. There's the way that he plays it is really good. So we end up with that episode with them heading off, and they're starting their road trip to Wyoming, and this is really game really kicks off. So I'm sure we'll start seeing some craziness going on in the show as well. But I just wanted to talk about this episode real quick, just because it really was very moving, and you wouldn't see something this humane in the middle of this post-apocalyptic thing. You usually don't see these moments of humanity in a grim telling like this. So it was really stood out. Really great job acting all around. Nick Offerman, Murray Bartlett, amazing. Pedro Pascal is still killing it every week, and it's been a lot of fun so far. I'm very interested to see how the rest of the show goes. So it's my ramblings on episode 3 of The Last of Us. Again, those shows come out Sunday at 9 on HBO and streaming on HBO Max. So if you want to catch that, you can catch up on the first 3 episodes, and episode 4 will come out later this week. Thank you for listening. Everybody have a great day.